Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. My name's Ian Utilli. I'm one of the co-producers at NFT NYC, and I'm here with the co-founder and the producer, capital T, capital P, the producer, Cameron Bale. Cameron, thank you for joining me. I think it'll be fun to have a conversation with you right now. For those that may not know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself and let folks know a bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Good to see you. So my name's Cameron. I am the co-founder, along with Jody Rich, our CEO and producer of NFT NYC. This is our third year hosting the event. We'll probably get into that in a moment. But the reason that we got into this is because I'm also the director of marketing and product development for a brand called Cred. We have a platform called NFT.Cred, which helps brands easily enter the NFT space. And that was really our reason for being in the NFT community.
I remember when you and I were talking about NFT NYC, and it's when everything was under the brand People Connect. And I learned a lot about Web3 and all things NFT from you and Jody, and just thinking, I'm not exactly sure what these guys are talking about, but I like it. And so I'm glad that I've been able to be involved with you guys. Let's talk a bit about community. Maybe we could focus on NFT NYC for that. And then we'll talk about just cool tech, and we can maybe talk a bit about Cred. So as far as community goes, you and Jody have this idea. You talk to Alex and Devin at OpenSea. You kind of form the initial team of, hey, let's launch something that can be an international gathering of people in this space. Maybe give us a little insight on community development 101, right? Comic book one. What was kind of the beginning, and what do you think about the community that's been built over the last few years?
This sort of goes back to the origin story of NFT Cred as well, because our background, we've been in business since 2009, and our background has been working with social influencers and brands. What Cred did initially was help social influencers understand where their influence was online and help brands identify the right people to work with. So that's what we were doing since 2009, but with a consumer product since 2011. Fast forward to 2017, 18, when we first sort of heard the murmurs of NFTs, we thought that our community of influencers and brands were exactly the type of people that could create, a great store of value of their digital content using this new technology. So we felt like from the start, we had this ideal target community for NFTs. And that's why we pursued the technology. So influencers and brands. And then, obviously it was a bit of an uphill battle. It's a hard technology for people to understand. And thankfully, finally this year, many, many more people do. But, that led us to realize that the NFT community was something that was small in 2018 and would eventually grow, we believed. And we felt that there was a need to create an event that really brought this space together. Because at that time in 2018, when we were sort of like doing the rounds at all the different conferences and, crypto expos and things like that, it was really the ICO era. And there was a bunch of guys making tons of money, writing white papers, not necessarily really doing a lot. Some of them were, but some of them weren't. And then we were sort of the shy, lonely person in the corner that no one cared about. No one cared about an NFT because you couldn't trade it on Coinbase at the time. And so the NFT community at these events really banded together. And we felt like, this was a small but growing community. And so we decided, like you said, with Devin and Alex to host our first event in February 2019. We had about 500 people turn up, and everyone knows the story from there on. It's crazy this year. We're looking at least 3,000 attendees, probably many more.
Right. Well, I remember Jody and I was rolling on my one wheel next to Jody as, our video guy is hiking backwards down Times Square. And Jody goes, next year, it's going to be NFT week. I'm very optimistic. So I'm like, that's right. NFT week next year. Yeah. But there weren't a lot of signs that we were going to have 3,000 attendees buy tickets and 500 speakers and 100 sponsors and turning away sponsors and having more people on the waiting list than we can actually fulfill. So it was, it's just good to see things grow. I think that under your and Jody's leadership and the way that you manage your team, it's been really, the folks that are involved are really happy that you're at the helm. That's what people say about you behind your back, Cam. A lot of people say good things about you behind your back. Let's talk a bit about product and tech and platform and what's happening today. And maybe we could focus on DocCred. DocCred is as important of a partner to my company, Attention Live, as any. DocCreds provides so many things for your clients as a strategic partner, as a vendor, and you've developed some tech that isn't brand new. You've been developing this for more than a decade and just tweaking it. So maybe talk a bit about where you're at in terms of serving the enterprise and people in the NFT space with the DocCred platform.
Cool. So Cred, like I said, our consumer product came out in, I think, around 2011, and our focus was always about creating simple custom social solutions for brands. And so we have a core set of APIs that we have integrated different blockchains into, and from 2017-18 started integrating with different NFT protocols. So the reason that we do that is because we believe that brands who will all eventually enter the NFT space, but we believe that for brands to do that more soon, or now, they need to have a very easy, simple solution that basically they just plug into. And so our focus for Cred has been to create, first of all, a no-code solution that, a small brand, an e-commerce, store, someone that, just like they have a Shopify store, could come along and set up their own standalone white label NFT experience. Yeah. Many people would call it a marketplace. We think that the experience we provide, a marketplace is part of that, but it's also, creating custom NFT templates, minting, distribution methods, and things like that. That's the no-code solution. And then beyond that, we build custom applications for different clients. And then for the clients that want to do something completely custom on their own, we provide a deep set of APIs for them to do that.
We're glad that you do.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the future. So, what's the future of NFTs? It's something that I've put a focus on throughout all the interviews I've done recently and for the last few years. But if I say to you NFT 2024, what comes to mind in terms of what your company's building or the community that's being developed or just things in general? I'd love to get updated insights on a positive expectation of what could happen for this industry.
People say that the best way to look forward is to look back. So, the very first thing that people started doing with NFTs was, of course, digital art. In 2019, we were astounded when we hosted the first conference, when we started to see all these different use cases that people were coming up with. Yeah. We had people registering DNA on the blockchain with NFTs, with products like Genobank. We had people doing digital real estate in virtual worlds like Upland. We have, blockchain domain names like Cred and Unstoppable Domains, and all these different use cases for NFTs that really you leverage the technology to improve the consumer experience with different things. And, looking backwards, art was the very first thing. And now, in terms of mainstream consumer adoption, art has just finally become, understood by a normal consumer audience. And, there was some explosive event that caused that to happen when someone spent $69 million on a piece of digital art. Thank you, Metakovan. Yes. I think it takes things like that for people for mainstream audiences to really start to understand why this technology has a place in these different industries. And so again, looking back, what I think is what's going to happen is that NFT gaming is going to explode. NFT domain names will be an industry that comes up, grows very quickly, very soon. And there's a number of them, all these different use cases. But I think, looking forward to 5 or 10 years, like I said before, I think that almost every online consumer experience will have some sort of interaction with NFTs. And I think for the majority of those experiences, the consumer won't know about it. It'll just be an underlying technology that improves the user experience. They'll have some sort of transferable store of value, like people do with their digital art. Being able to trade the registration for your car might be using an NFT, or being able to, sell whatever you have, anything that you have, you could sell it on a secondary marketplace because it's the underlying technology or proof of ownership is an NFT. So I think that's where it's going. But, just like databases or anything else, I think it's going to sort of move from being in the spotlight to being an underlying technology. And people will in some ways sort of forget about NFTs, but they will, continue to be there and they'll persist forever.
Yeah. Well, we're 2.5 weeks out. And as we wrap up our conversation right now, um, you know, I know that there's a lot of people that want your attention, want the team's attention, and you don't have the ability to connect with every single person, especially at the level maybe they'd like your time and energy. So maybe as a final word, if you could just have every attendee, everybody on the waiting list, all the speakers, all the sponsors in front of you, and you had all their attention for a minute, what might you want to say to them 2.5 weeks out of the event?
Rest well before you come. It's going to be intense. We've got 3 full days of programming, hundreds of speakers, thousands of attendees. There's tens, if not 100 amazing satellite events with some crazy parties.
Amazing.
Every night there's something happening. We've got different venues around the Times Square area. It's really going to feel like a festival. So sleep well before you come, and be prepared to have some time off afterwards.
Yeah. Well, same goes for you and the team. I know it's not necessarily possible for your team and everyone to rest well, but I hope that the rest you do get is deep and meaningful. And I'll see you and the team in New York in about, less than 2 weeks. I'll be there pretty soon. So I look forward to it. Thanks for jumping on with me and having a conversation so that people can get a bit more insight about how we got here. And for everyone watching us live or the archive, thanks for your attention. I'll be back again soon.